Hey, welcome to the Cyber Savvy Woman, where women business owners reclaim their power in the digital world. We shatter the myth that cybersecurity is too complex to master and transform protection strategies into clear, actionable guidance. This is your digital empowerment sanctuary, where cyber fear becomes cyber confidence. Whether you're protecting client trust as a therapist or safeguarding financial data as an advisor, you'll hear from women founders who've conquered digital challenges and security experts who speak your language. Every woman leading a business deserves to feel unshakable in her digital decisions, no matter her technical background. Are you ready to stop letting cybersecurity intimidate you and start letting it elevate you? Here's your host, Rachele Schainker.
Welcome back to the Cyber Savvy Woman, where we talk about practical ways women can protect themselves, their businesses, and their futures in our increasingly digital world. I'm your host, Rachele Schainker, a Silicon Valley technologist and owner of the award-winning managed service provider, CMIT Solutions of San Mateo. Today's guest is Paul Faronbi, founder and CEO of IncrediPaul, Maxwell Leadership Certified Coach and Speaker, engineer, nonprofit founder, and host of IncrediPaul Leadership Podcast, ranked in the top 10 globally. That's amazing. Top 10%. That's amazing. Paul is on a mission to help Gen Z professionals in STEM become the most incredible versions of themselves through leadership development, resilience, networking, and career growth. Paul, welcome to the show. So happy to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Rachel. Happy to be here.
Yeah. You have a very interesting mix of engineering, leadership, coaching, speaking, podcasting, and your nonprofit work. I love it. What is the story behind how that all came together?
Yes, I think the story behind it is I maybe have a little bit of ADD or ADHD, just like to do all the different things. But I'm not self-diagnosed, but in all seriousness, I think it just comes from wanting to make a difference and use the talents I have and skills and continue to develop them and do more with them.
Yeah, yeah. You shared how leadership has always been a passion for you. When did you first realize that developing people mattered as much as that, the technical work, your engineering work? Like, where were you when you kind of realized, hey, I want to do both of these things?
Yeah, I think one of the first times I saw how important leadership was when I was in college, getting involved in different student organizations and being a part of some that were ran really well, and others that were not run as well, and then being part of the leadership teams there. I think it really wasn't until after college and I graduated that I started to do more to empower others with the nonprofit work and then later with IncrediPaul.
Yeah. You've been very intentional about shifting your language from young professionals to Gen Z professionals. Why did that specificity matter?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think being more intentional about the words so that your target audience can find you and know that you are for them, because Gen Z, they are young professionals, but it's more there's more resonating when you say Gen Z, because even myself, I still consider myself a young professional. Well, I am a young professional and being 32 years old. Not necessarily, I'm not Gen Z, so I'm a younger millennial, and I probably lean more to Gen Z's way of of thinking. So I think that was why it was really important for me to do it, because I had been doing a lot of stuff with college students really for the last 10 years, ever since I graduated. And so it's always been something I've been passionate about. People who want to learn, who want to grow, because not everyone wants to grow and learn, and that's fine. But I really resonate and connect well with people who want to be incredible.
Yeah, yeah. And for people, perfect segue, for people meeting you for the first time, what does be incredible really mean to you? What does that mean?
Yeah, another great question. For me, it means yeah, you're just on a roll with these. For me, it means finding the essence of who you are and striving to be the best version of you. Because I think it's really easy to try to be the best, maybe best podcaster out there. Nothing wrong with being not maybe the best speaker, but maybe you have a certain way that you podcast, that you speak, that you're an engineer, that you're in tech, all these different things. And there's this special sauce, a special flavor that you add that's uniquely you. And I think honing into that, obviously there's things like we all have things that we can improve and learn. That's why I do a lot of stuff in personal growth and being incredible. But I think there's essence of you that are truly you that you shouldn't have to change.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, because sometimes I see coaching kind of like they have their strategy, they have their way, and kind of like everyone kind of pushes through that, where you're really wanting people to identify what their, what inside of them makes them unique, and then spotlighting that. It's really special.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, people don't really do that. So yeah, IncrediPaul has grown into a platform, a message, a movement. What problem were you trying to solve when you first launched it, or what was the intent behind that? Was it really just like, or you share your story?
Yeah. So initially, what I IncrediPaul was just formalizing the stuff I was already doing. So it was more focused on a lot of stuff with the career development, professional development. So I still do some career coaching. I don't advertise as much. I still do it, but helping people in that realm. I've worked for 5 different, I say billion-dollar corporations, 4 Fortune 500, and then work at a private company right now, all billion-dollar corporations. So I've had to transition. I had to go out and find a job and progress at all of the different jobs I've had multiple positions in all of them. So that was really the beginning of IncrediPaul, but then I just became more and more focused on leadership, and I just wanted to, and just the overall idea of personal growth, understanding like being Maxwell leadership certified. John Maxwell talks about all the time. The only guarantee that tomorrow is going to be better than today is if you're growing. So it's really important.
Yeah, every day. Yeah. What would you say are some of the biggest misconceptions people have about Gen Z in the workplace? I know sometimes they get a bad rap, but I mean, I have a child or a young adult who's Gen Z, and I love that generation. I love how they are, but I know sometimes people maybe have a different misconception about them in the workplace. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think there's a misconception about them being lazy or not wanting to work or not wanting to do certain things. And what I've seen and what from talking with them and just doing more research on it is it's not that they don't want to work, but they want to work on something that's meaningful. And I think definitely, I think millennials, we kind of started that being more intentional about the work what we're doing, and Gen Z's really honed in on that. A lot of Gen Z people, they want to have their own businesses, whether it's being influencers or creators or starting their own businesses. They want to be in charge of that, and they really care about sustainability and the future, where there's a lot of things that are going on right now, especially we can get into the stuff with AI, where the future doesn't look that bright. And Gen Z is here for the long haul. I mean, Gen Alpha is right behind them, but Gen Z is the newest to the workforce. I think there's like 4 or 5 different generations in the workforce, really for the first time. And they are wanting to make sure they are doing things that are impactful and make sure that the world is actually going to exist for them in the future.
What can I do to, I mean, I currently have 3 Gen Z people on staff. I believe them to be happy. I believe them to enjoy what they're doing. But what can I be doing to make sure, I am supporting them the best way they can? Like, is there anything I can do, to make sure they're here? I'm always like checking in. Are you heard? Is this good? Is this interesting? How can I support you? Is that enough, or is there more I should be doing?
I think that's a great start. I think a lot of times it's easy to assume that no news is good news. If they're not saying anything, that everything is fine, which is really hardly ever true. Like I give I give talks on leadership. I talk about feedback being a gift, but sometimes a gift that you want to return to sender, depending on if people are ready to receive it. But I think it's important that you proactively ask for feedback and you create psychological safety that they actually will give feedback. I think sometimes with leaders, we don't realize that we have created an environment of just agree with me or get out of the way or agree with me or get fired, which I don't think that's what you're doing. But just like as a general answer, I think something to be mindful of is when you're asking for feedback for them or really anyone is do they volunteer? Are they hesitant with giving the feedback, or are they openly giving the feedback? And then just look back at situations, whether it's them or even past people, because people in the office always talk, or they're going to talk to other people about like, are this is like for anyone listening, is how receptive are you when you're giving feedback? Because if they don't feel like you're listening and you're taking it and doing something with it, that doesn't mean you have to change anything.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because sometimes you might the feedback might be, hey, I don't like doing this, but the reality is, in order to do your job effectively or the business to run, you have to do this. So it's a give and take, it's a balance, and I think really being intentional about setting the right expectations for Gen Z as well, because I know sometimes they and that's why a lot of times where people haven't been the best fans of remote work the most recently, because they don't always set the best expectations, and so they feel like, oh, like, in order to make sure you're working, I have to see you in the office every day, which sometimes it's important, it's necessary, but if you have the right expectations, people know what they're supposed to do, there's a regular cadence, then there should be more autonomy as opposing to have to check in all the time.
Yes. Yeah, because we don't need to. Yeah. I mean, and I also know too, like when I ask for feedback, sometimes that does take time and trust, right?
Yes, it does.
Because they don't know, they're starting with me and they don't know. And if I'm just like, it's going to take time because I'm not getting a ton of feedback, but I'm also not stopping asking, and not like I'm asking every day or something, but like, at least weekly, I'm like, this is work, wanting to make sure that they're supported and they're successful. And they are. And, I mean, I've had some that have completely ghosted. I mean, I've had the whole gamut.
Yeah, that happens too.
Yeah, and I would say that could happen in any generation, and it's like, so I try to keep open mind, but I have a fondness for that generation personally. Anyway, but we'll move on. If you make a let's talk about leadership, confidence, and kind of career growth, right? You make a very strong distinction between business and leadership, that business focuses on managing things while leadership focuses on the people part. Can you kind of talk more about that, expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think business is really important. There's a lot of people that focus on the business, the numbers, all those things. But if you truly lead your people well, the business is going to take care of itself. And so really it's having good leadership is one is having a good vision for what your business is, what you're striving for, and then making sure that people are in the right seats on the bus. I forgot, I think it's Bob Berg that wrote that book, The Energy Bus, if I'm quoting that right. But it's just understanding, because it's really hard to train for attitude. You can pretty much train anyone to do anything. It just takes the amount of time. But if you have someone that has the right work ethic and attitude, that is someone you just need to find the best place that they fit. So I think that's really important, the vision behind it, and then seeing their strengths as well as their weaknesses too. Because sometimes if you have someone that you know is not very detail oriented, you probably don't want them to do detail oriented things. At least, I mean, sometimes they're gonna have to do it.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Obviously, like, you're gonna have to do it. But if that's what they have to do all the time, they're not in their right role. So I think that's something you have to figure out as a leader.
Yeah. It's very interesting because when I don't know, probably 20 years ago, I was deep in corporate America and we all took our personality tests. And there was a piece of work that I was doing that was extremely detail oriented, but it came out that I am not detail oriented. I'm very high level. And they were like, oh, well, it just means you have to try harder. I was like, huh, really? Maybe that could be different. Maybe that could be different. Maybe I can know that detail work isn't great for me. I can find other things to do. Not that I just have to work harder at it.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned that, because I think a lot of times we try to fix our weaknesses and make them our strengths, when they're not ever really gonna be a strength. Like if someone has a strength, that's gonna be their strength. Maybe you can make your weakness maybe more average, maybe above average, but you're gonna get much higher return if you focus on your strengths to make that better, and then you manage your weaknesses. Or even as leaders, if you can get people who are good at what you're weaker at, and that's their strength, that's the ideal thing to do. So then you can balance each other out, and you don't try and turn them into you because they're a different person, they have different focuses,
Right. Exactly.
have different people who have strengths in different ways, and
Yeah. I mean, it did give me, like, self-reflection. I was like, "Oh, no wonder I have such a hard time with this," it's not this is where I should be, but it really stuck in my head. A lot of STEM professionals are very technically brilliant, but they could struggle with the visibility, communication, or confidence because they love being in their tools, being on the keyboard. Where do you start with them there?
just to understand that at the end of the day, you're interacting with people no matter what job you have. There's always going to be interface with people, and that is not something that people always think about. They're just like, oh yeah, I'm just going to focus on this thing and I just do it well, I don't have to worry about anything else. And that's not true. You're always going to have some interaction with people. And so I think the biggest thing that people struggle with, whether it's leaders or people who are more individual contributors, is just working on listening skills. A lot of times we listen to respond, we don't listen to understand. And it's really easy to get caught up in that because we don't want to forget what we're saying or how or respond.
Or wanna say, yeah.
Yeah, all those things. So I think that that's the first thing, because a lot of times, like if you're giving a technical presentation or talk about something technical as an engineer or someone in this in the STEM space, you know the details of it, you know all these things. But if you're talking to someone that's non-technical, they want to know bottom line, is this going to work? Yes or no? Is this going to sell? There's really basic things that they wanna know, and if you go all in sharing all these deep technical things, and they're asking for something else, and then you're trying to formulate an answer thinking that they're challenging your technical ability, because that's what happens a lot. They ask these questions, and they're not related to anything technical, it's just like a basic thing, and I think if you can hone in on your listening skills, it's gonna make life so much easier just as a foundation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that's like a habit too, like, explaining because my role in corporate world was as that business systems analyst. So I was between tech and the business side and helping them translate, right? Because the techs knew everything, but they could not explain it. And so I had to sit there and be like the translator, which was fine for me. I mean, I didn't know that was a skill set,
Definitely. Undervalued skill set, I think. Yeah.
but not every company has that. Yeah. You talk a lot about resilience, networking, navigating your career. Which of these would you say feels most urgent for Gen Z right now? Where are you seeing it's popping up a lot?
That's another really good question. I think it's a toss-up between resilience and networking, depending on where you're at. Because at first I wanted to say resilience, but then based on all the stuff I've seen, and I recently did a webinar on networking for introverts specifically, I'm realizing that that is also a need as well. So I think between those two, it just depends on who you are, because I think everyone is going to go through things that are hard, and you're going to have to go through that and to bounce back from it. So like I have a framework that spells out rest that goes to talk about resilience. And the first one is talk about that rejection is inevitable. It's gonna happen. And that can be sombering, but I think it also provides hope to know that the most successful people have faced rejection. And so the rejection is not the end. Rejection oftentimes is the beginning. And I think that the pathway to success is paved with failure.
Yes, yeah. And I think sometimes people don't talk about that, right? Because they're embarrassed or they don't want to talk about their failures, or they see everyone around we see everyone around us, like, with their whatever they're doing super well, right? Like, no one's sitting there talking. So it's hard to tap into that, because I hear that, so it's so easy for that person, or why is it easy for that person? And it's just, it can be easy for you too. It just might take a little bit more time, or it's very interesting. um, what about, why is a community so critical for students and professionals from underrepresented backgrounds in STEM? Which to me is so important, right? I mean, I was a woman in IT, and there were times I was the only woman in a room of 50 people, maybe to 50 is a high, 20, and it doesn't feel great. But tell me what you're seeing, and tell me how you share that with Gen Z.
Yeah, I think it's community is really important because as humans, we are like pack creatures. We gravitate to people who are similar to us, whether that is biologically, whether that is by age, whether that's ethnicity. So I think especially what I've seen, a lot of stuff I've done with in the nonprofit world has been specifically helping people who are historically excluded in STEM, whether that is people who are minorities as far as race, or even women in STEM. We don't have enough women in STEM. There could be more. And having those communities is important because you have people that can tell you that this is possible. You can do it. There are those special people that can push through even though they don't have anyone else that looks like them, or they don't have a lot of encouragement. There's a lot of internal encouragement, which you need internal encouragement in order to get through everything. But the external and what you surround yourself with is also really critical, because that's where imposter syndrome comes in, which imposter syndrome affects everyone. But some of the research shows it's just that people who are more in minority groups, whether that's ethnicity or women, are more likely to express imposter syndrome, and that can hold them back.
Yeah. And so are you seeing these communities inside of companies? Are they outside of companies? Are they, where would someone go find it, this community? This community you speak of, Paul, where would we find it?
Yeah, I think ideally, if you could find it within your company, that's the easiest thing. But I know there's been a lot of stuff rolling back, diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. So I think there's more stuff you can do on the external side. So like the stuff I've been doing on the nonprofit side with NALA STEM, the National Alliance, the Acceleration of Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math. And we're partnered with a lot of other organizations that do similar things. So I have a good friend that I've been connected with really over the last, I guess, almost 2 years now. Carmen Banks, PhD, Dr. Carmen Banks, I should say. So she founded a company called Melanin Science. It's more on the life sciences. So she's based out in the Bay Area, doing similar things for people in the Black and Brown community, but really focusing more on life sciences and doing a lot of stuff with just stuff on the career side, like understanding like how do you navigate your career, just creating more visibility to the fact that you can be a scientist. You do look like a scientist. So there's like real time.
Are a scientist. Yes.
Yeah, you are a scientist. So she actually had a this is kind of funny because I saw this morning that she had a post on LinkedIn that she was looking for like different stock images or Black scientists, and she was struggling to find them. So even like for stock images or like even like AI, it's like it's so embedded that it's not common. Yeah.
Oh, it's so hard. Like, same thing, even my social media, it's like, can we not have the white male? Doing like, it's so hard. It's not so hard, but it's interesting when the content creators are making it. It's just like, oop, that pops up. They just do it. It's like, no, you have to take an extra second and scroll down, or like change or look a little harder, No.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Don't take the first one. Yeah, yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about NALA STEM. You built this community for historically excluded people. What made you say, "Hey, let's do this. This has to exist." Was it your own experience? How does it operate? Is it national? Is it local? Or
Yeah, no, good question. So it is at the national level. So we've partnered with different colleges and universities. Right now we've scaled it back a little bit. We're more focusing on some of the research efforts because the originally so we've been starting it with is I'm laughing because I didn't intend to start this. I meant to partner with other kind of alumni associations that would kind of partner with the National Science Foundation. And when I went to reach out to some of the regional ones, that's when they asked the question if I would be willing to start something like this. And that has since exploded 6 years later. But I think the focus behind it is really to understand that there's a lot of us out there, and there it really comes from the Louis Stokes Alliance for Minority Participation. So that's a grant from the National Science Foundation 35 years ago. 1991 is when it started. And so different colleges and universities have a grant, and they partner together up to like 10 different colleges, universities and community colleges. And the goal behind that is to do undergraduate research and lead to a master's and PhD. So really like deep technical stuff, because as much as there's not representation for minorities in STEM, there's even less in ones who are getting PhDs or like more advanced degrees. So that's been the focus behind all of this.
Hmm, I love that. Kudos. I mean, thank you for doing that work. It's so important. What advice would you give to a young person in STEM who feels like they belong technically but not culturally? Is it finding that community? Is it finding a mentor? Or, what's not a quick win, but a quick win, like something to put them on the right direction, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's critical to find communities, even if it's not one that it's at work. Like ideally, it's at work, but you need some sort of an outlet. So that's why I mentioned with NALA STEM, which we're more moving to a model like focus on research, and then we might do more community stuff. But we're what we're trying to do right now is to get people knowledgeable about other communities similar to us, because really NALA STEM was focused on the specific grant for the Natural Science Foundation, LSAMP, which I don't have time to go into all the stuff that has gone on in the government and some of those grants that have kind of disappeared. So we're partnering more with other organizations. I mentioned Melon Science. I know there's another one. I had her on my podcast, Ashley Jeter, all things STEM with Ashley. I know Abdi Mohammed is doing a lot of stuff with on the cloud side of things. So there's other organizations that have different niches within STEM for diversity in STEM that we're trying to point people to and bring voices to it. So I think that is the key thing to do, is to find a place where you feel like you belong. Ideally, it's going to be where you work or in a city that you're in. Sometimes you might be able to find it there, and then you can do it online and maybe go to different conferences. So another one, I'm just like rattle off different people. Camille Smith is doing stuff with STEM Social. So like getting engineers and people in STEM together at different gatherings. They've had stuff really all over the country. I know she's based out of Philadelphia. It started there.
Interesting.
Had her on the podcast as well, but they've had stuff from Philly to the West Coast to the South to all over. I can't name all the different cities.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah.
Every time it pops up, I see a new city. Yeah. So I think it's really tapping into that. So I would say the easiest way is if they get in contact with me or reach out to like find a NALA STEM page or reach out to me, and I can definitely connect them to one that might be of interest.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for offering that. You know, um, Here's one of my last questions to you. What are 3 leadership skills every Gen Z professional should be building right now? What should they be focusing on?
Yes. 3. Only 3?
Just 3. Let's just keep it 3.
Okay. No, I'm kidding.
Or 1. If you want to pick 1, we can just do 1.
Okay, if I do 1, I think the most important one is communication, because a lot of things wrapped up in that. And the first one I'll mention is one I already mentioned at the beginning, is listening. You can't communicate effectively if you don't listen. And then the other part of communicating is having something worthwhile to say. Some people just talk for the sake of talking because they want to hear their voices. Some people start a podcast because of that, not knocking them if you want to do that. But I think having something worthwhile to say and being willing to say it too, because I know there's a lot of the fear of public speaking is one of the top fears, more than the fear of dying. I think Jerry Seinfeld has a bit that says, if you're at a eulogy, people would rather be the person in the casket than the one giving the eulogy.
Right, exactly.
So communication is really critical, and it's something that you can always get better at.
Yeah, 100%. All right, that's great. So we've reached the part of the podcast where we do this quick little rapid fire. I'm going to ask you questions. You're going to just tell me what comes top of mind. What does being incredible mean in 1 sentence?
Doing the best you can to discover yourself and continue improving.
Yeah, lovely. And is leadership or management?
Leadership.
And podcast mic or keynote stage?
Keynote stage.
What is 1 word Gen Z needs less of from leaders?
Ooh, probably AI.
Fair. What is the best career advice you've ever received?
Don't be afraid to try something just because it's not part of your long-term vision.
Yeah. No, that's great. Is there a habit that you have that keeps you grounded? You seem very grounded.
Reading. I read a lot.
Yeah. All right. And then coffee, tea, or something else? What's your favorite beverage?
Ooh, I don't know if I have a favorite beverage, but if I had to choose between coffee and tea, it's tea.
Yeah. Tea. Okay, excellent. And what does being cyber savvy mean to you?
I think it's understanding that technology is a tool that you can continue to learn and grow with, and it's not something to be afraid of.
Yeah, no, that's lovely. Paul, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. I really appreciated this conversation about your perspective on leadership, confidence, community, and what it means to help the next generation truly become incredible. And to our listeners, please be sure to check out our show notes so you can find out how you can connect to Paul and all of his, incredible resources. I just came up with that.
I love
All right. And thank you so much, Paul. I really appreciate what you're doing. And if I can ever be of any help, please let me know. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rachel. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Have a good day.
The Cyber Savvy Woman podcast requires more than a conversation. It takes action, research, and collective wisdom. If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your insights. Join the conversation and help us shape the future together. We'll be back with more stories, strategies, and real-world solutions that are making a difference for everyone. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, rate, write a review, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too. Hey, thanks for listening, and see you on the next episode.